Good morning, everybody. So, this is going to be a little different episode than anyone we've done in the past. First off, I got to apologize I have a little bit of a cold that I've been beating up over here, so might sound a little bit congested, but we good. So anyways, this episode's going to be kind of like a talk story, best of the best episode. I wanted to go over some memorable big fish moments. There's a lot, so I kind of just had to pick the ones that I thought I might have the best content on, and that's a really cool story to tell. There's some cool ones that, big ones here and there that are just, great big fish, but the story is not that exciting. So I kind of picked ones that would be a little bit cool to say, and we'll see how it goes. If you guys really like this, maybe we'll do a part 2, because I have a laundry list of these types of stories. I just picked a few that I found entertaining, and I figured we'd go with them. And if just about all the stories have video content with them, there's probably going to be 2 of them that may not, but they're worth talking about. Oh, hold on 1 second. Wait. Sorry about that, guys. So, I had a call interrupt. Anyways, the other part of this story is that I'm going to try. I have some logs sitting here, and I'm going to try and tell you what my lure spread was in that particular day, on that particular moment. Some of them, I didn't write down the whole lure spread, so we might be a little off, but I have I don't remember everything, but I could tell you how almost every big fish bite was, where it was, what it ate, where I was, kind of deal. It's kind of weird that way. It's just like burned in my head. But then, can I tell you, something simple from yesterday? Probably not. But so, I don't know. Anyways, so, we're in winter time right now. I'm not fishing this winter. We got a lot going on. I'm building this company with Cole. Got these other products I'm releasing. Got a bunch of other things kind of going on. Decided to take a little bit of time, spend some time with my kids, spend some time, getting on top of stuff that kind of put myself in a little bit better of a position moving forward, and just to kind of take the time off. The fishing is not really very good here in the winter usually. With that being said, January was, for a couple weeks, was the best fishing Kona's ever seen, but you just don't know. That was a fluke thing. I did write an article about that bite. If you haven't read it, check it out. It's pretty cool. It's in Marlin magazine. Anyways, wintertime, cruising, having a morning here. Surf's been firing lately, which is a good thing. Beautiful weather. Stoked to be here in Hawaii. But I thought I would do something a little different. So I thought we'd put this together and we'd start talking story. I got a good cup of coffee here. I got a couple hours to spare, and figured we'd start off. So so let's start off with some stories here. All right, so first story I want to talk about, this was a pretty cool moment. This was quite a while back. I think this was maybe 5-6 years ago or something. But so this was when Jables was fishing with me, and so we were heading down south. Fishing had been pretty slow. If I remember correctly, it was towards the end of the summer, getting close to August time, sometime around then. It was just after kind of the big tournament run, so not a lot of people were fishing. So we were down working an area called kind of known as the Kitchen. It's down south. It's not super far, but it's down south a bit from the harbor, an hour, maybe a couple hour troll. So we were working an area down there. It kind of started to look good. Went out wide off the ledge, started coming back in on the ledge, and I remember I just did a turn off that inside ledge. We were maybe 300 fathoms. We were coming back out, and we just kind of got to the 600 fathom mark. and it starts to kind of go drastically down, and then there's a big tongue that kind of comes out there. And we had just gotten over that, and right then I had one pile on my Bart Blue Breakfast on the right short, and it ate, and I said, oh, nice fish, came up kind of like half jump right after the bite, looked like a 600 pounder. Okay, cool. So, started doing a slow turn towards that fish. Kept everything in gear, didn't do anything weird. That's how I like to fish on my bites. I like to keep everything in gear in case you can get a double. Also, if you just stop the boat, this fish is just first off, you've lost momentum. Second off, you're not really, there's one thing, I guess you could stop, get everything in, then roar in reverse, but I think you're gonna do a lot better if actually you start slowly turning at this fish and you just kind of keep going, and you start to kind of cut off wherever that fish was going. You'll lose less line, and then you'll pull everything else out of the way so that you can pivot and start reversing on this fish once that side is cleared if you need to, or if it's a smaller one, you can just keep kind of going with it and clear your lines and you'll be right to them. Catch fish really fast with that method. Anyhow, so started doing a slow turn. Just when I started doing the turn, I look back and I see this freaking animal coming up, head out of the water, like pushing waking with the fin up on my short, on my left short, which was a double XL poi dog, coming up on it. And I go, wow, there's another one. Joe's transferring the rod now to our charter that's in the chair. I see this thing coming up. I go, oh no, this is a bigger one. This is a really nice one. Piles on, does a pretty good bite inside out. Nothing like over the shoulder crazy, but like came up, head out of the water, fin up, and piled on and was on. Joe ran over, pushed the drag up, backed off a little bit. And now I'm looking back, and now here's this 800 pound, plus fish jumping one way. And now here's a 6 jumping this way, and then they're turning, and I'm looking back and I'm seeing both these fish just going absolutely nuts. And I'm like, what in the world is going on right now? It was one of the coolest sights I've seen behind the back of Benchmark. Two, like really good sized fish, the ones we look for, the ones over 500 are the ones we're looking for, right? And so we got 2 well over 500 just going absolutely bonkers behind the boat. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, what do I do, So I made the decision pretty quickly. Okay, let's keep the drag pretty light on that real big one, and then let's push the drag up on the smaller one, medium, so not smaller, but smaller of the 2. And what we'll do is try and get on that smaller one real quick. Try and catch it as quick as we possibly can, or pull hook on it, and then we'll get after this bigger one. Depending what that fish was doing, we may have swapped it, but that fish was kind of played the game for us. He pulled out a bunch of line, got into the backing, and then was just kind of just on the surface loafing around a bit, and allowed us to kind of start chasing this other one. So we get after the smaller of the 2, the 6 or whatever. We get after it pretty quick, and I just say, look, Joe, just put heavy drag on this fish. Let's just get on it, And we had to do a few like back and forth and going over, and so we were keeping the bigger fish in the rod holder, and Joe would sometimes pick it up and go to a different rod holder, and he would kind of keep it tight, but we weren't trying to get too close to that one yet. We wanted it farther away, because once you get 2 of the fish closer together and they can kind of start feeling each other, weird stuff starts to happen. I'd rather have one kind of far away, just kind of doing his own thing, and then keeping one closer. So anyways, we eventually start getting closer to this one, and we get over to him, and it's pretty lively, because we had a heavy drag on it. We're getting after it, and Joe goes to take a wrap and gets a couple wraps real quick, going to take another wrap, and the thing just goes poof straight up and starts just going crazy acrobatic all behind the boat. Joe kind of has to let it go. It jumps into the line of the bigger one that's out there now, pulling drags still. Jumps into it, lands in it. I run down and I back the drag down on the real big fish. As I'm seeing this fish kind of jump into it, and somehow it doesn't get tangled in the line. It like pulls some line, the line, you know, I back the drag way off, kind of gets up in it. It's in it for a second. We got weird thing. I'm going, oh no. And it comes out of the line, comes up on the other side, push the drag back up on the bigger fish. And then, you know, we get back over to the 6 and I'm like, Joe, grab a hold of this thing, get your knees under that covering board and just hang on until something breaks. And he's like, all right. So he gets over, he gets a couple of wraps. We're getting over fast. I'm getting over to it, gets a couple more wraps, gets a couple. I'm like, all right, just hang on to this thing. And the thing is jumping and pulling, but I now got it off to the side here, which is better. And we're kind of going with it. And this one's now off to the corner, starting to turn off more to the corner as I'm chasing this fish. Anyways, fish starts to kind of pull away from him. And good on Joe. He got kind of slammed into the corner, but he didn't let go. And he just held. We straightened the hook enough that it pulled out of the meat. And we released that fish. And that fish was gone. We got it up close. And then, so now we're on to the other one. Now I only have one charter on the boat. So now my guy is like exhausted and he's like, man, I don't know. So I'm like, all right, Joe, you know, Portuguese pumped this thing in a rod holder. So he's in a rod holder. We're chasing reverse. And all this, that fish had so much line behind it. You'll notice if you ever let one, they're going to do one or two things. They're going to go down and die on you, or they're going to stay there up on the surface and fight the bow. So this one stayed on the surface and fought the bow. So we're just bringing in line. And then we get kind of tight to this thing. And it kind of comes up and does a half jump. And I see the size of it, and I'm like, wow, this is one of the biggest fish I've seen here. This thing's giant, you know? And I remember thinking in my head at the time, like, is this possibly the one, you know? It wasn't, but it was definitely a really big one. Anyways, we get it over. At that point, we're getting closer. We get it in the chair. Our charter starts to fight it. I start getting real aggressive on it. We get over to it. First set of wraps. The fish just kind of is docile, comes up alongside the boat. Great, perfect thing. Get the double wraps. You know, he's got it up alongside the boat, sitting there, laid right out, lit up, beautiful colors. And I grabbed Joe's camera, and I ran up in the tower, and I shot a bunch of photos. And the funny thing is, I'm not a photographer, right? Joe's an outstanding photographer, right? He's a professional photographer. But I grabbed his camera. I'm like, what do I do? He had the settings set up. So all I was doing was clicking and zooming and whatever. Took a bunch of pictures of those fish. Ends up, a couple of those photos end up being like some of our most used photos. And one of them even became a cover shot for Blue Water magazine in Australia. And I think Joe wanted to smack me with a sock full of quarters over that. But somehow I got a cover shot out of that fish, and it was just a fish. It wasn't my skill or anything. It was Joe's settings. You know, he had it set. Anyways, that was a pretty cool one. Double trouble on the benchmark. And that was really exciting. That's the first time I have seen that size of fish in a double. So pretty cool. All right, on to the next story. I couldn't in good conscience go through these stories of fish without talking about my grander, of course. I don't have the greatest footage of that. That fish was a while back. I wasn't really filming a lot. Luckily, my buddy Sal had a GoPro and he filmed some. Here's some video of it that I do have. It's not great.
Battling just now. Can't even get the fucking thing in the boat. Captain Chris. Hopefully we got an 800-900 pounder going. Off the port control, off the port control.
So let me tell you the story about this one. Kind of a cool story too. And as you can, above me, that is the bill. The actual bill, not a taxidermy bill, the actual bill of the 1025. My buddy has passed away now, but Captain George was his name, older guy, kind of real salty fisherman over there. He took that bill for me and put it on a piece of Samoan teak, and I don't know what he did to petrify it. I've never really seen a bill like that. It's not like all white or anything. It just looks like the bill. I don't know what it is. It doesn't smell or anything, and it's like still feels very realistic, and it's still dark in color. It's really cool. Here, hold on. Oh, let's see. So I have that up here, and then I also have, here's the lure we caught the grander on, breakfast, a Bart, and here's the story in the paper. It is still the national record of Samoa. It is still the biggest fish caught in Samoa, and funnily enough, about a month prior we broke the record for the all tackle fish in Samoa on an 80. And then about a month later, we broke the record again with my 1025, and that was on a 130. So I guess we have the 80 and the 130 record over there, national records in Samoa. And I believe in that area of Oceania, that is the biggest official caught fish, Blue Marlin. So that's kind of cool. It was a dream of mine when I moved to Samoa, when I first started fishing there. Started off on like a little skiff, then I ended up running a center console, then I ended up, bit by bit by bit. But my dream was to catch a grander there. I worked really hard at it. It was not easy. There aren't people there that are doing that type of fishing. I kind of had to figure it out on my own. There's spots that were untouched. I mean, it was incredible. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of time. It was a lot of like figuring stuff out, where it's working. I think that experience and then fishing some of those other remote places after that kind of made me who I am as a fisherman, and kind of made me learn how to kind of read the water in different areas and just kind of show up somewhere and have an idea of where the Blue Marlin might be. So tremendous fishery Samoa is, but being somewhere remote like that and operating sport fishing boats is not easy. Anyone who's done it and done traveling operations can tell you it's definitely difficult, especially when you don't have an unlimited budget and you don't have like a mothership and you're trying to make it work. It can be pretty stressful. So anyways, the grander story. Okay, this is a pretty interesting one. A lot of people don't know the whole story, so I'm going to tell it right now. So I had the 43 Cabo, was running down there, Southern Destiny, and they have, geez, that didn't sound good. And they have a harbor in Apia, which is the main city there, which they had just kind of built at the time, and it had shore power and water and all that, had a break wall kind of cutting in. But what happens is, typical to how Samoa is sometimes, they didn't design it correctly. So on a really big north swell, I think it would be, like a northwest, it just comes in. There's like, I've never seen anything. It's like swell lines coming in the harbor. So they had these floating docks, and it was always scary as hell. Like, we had ropes, so we had like our stern rope to a tire, and then another rope from the tire to the cleat to kind of give a little bit of giveaway, because we were ripping cleats out of the dock because there was so much surge, and it would kind of allow the boat to kind of string between. That's a whole nother story, that whole thing. My buddy Chris Marshall, Westy, some people out there may know him. He fished a bunch in those years with me over there, and it was interesting, the two of us trying to figure that out. And Westy's a character. He's certainly a character. Definitely a brother from another mother, but yeah, he was a character. It was an interesting time fishing with him down there. Anyways, what happened, I'm kind of going off topic here, but what happened was we had a cyclone, which is a hurricane, but in the southern hemisphere they're called cyclones, right? So it was coming off the coast of Samoa, and it was due to hit us at some point, right? It wasn't going to be that bad when it hit us, but what happened was we had pretty big tides, and it had sat out there for so long, it was bringing a really big swell. On top of that, there was also a pretty bombing north swell from the North Pacific that was coming through. And I still, to this day, have never seen the North Coast get that big a swell. It was the biggest swell I've ever seen on the North Coast. It was freaking giant. So this swell started coming through the harbor there. and it just started destroying it. I mean, it was falling apart. We were ripping cleats out. The boat was swinging everywhere. I mean, it was like, okay, I have two decisions. One decision, two options, right? I could leave the boat there. 90% chance that thing is going to end up on the rocks. It's just the end of the boat, you know what I mean? Pollute the water, get fuel everywhere. Absolute nightmare, you know? So I called my insurance company. I said, look, what can I do? You know, I can take this thing out to sea, and I can take it out to sea, and we could come around the corner, and I'll try and find a safe area in a lagoon and just kind of anchor it up and sit it out. And, you know, my insurance company said, look, we can't tell you to do something like that because you're going to risk your life, right? But they said, look, just do the best that you can, and that's all that matters, right? So they're basically like, you're covered either way. But in good conscience, I couldn't leave that boat sitting there. I mean, it was crazy what was happening. I mean, it was like snapbacks, just like boom, boom. And we had like a good probably 24 hours before the wind really happened. So you just had big swells. And I've never seen anything like this in Samoa. There was waves, they were like out at sea, there were waves breaking and stuff, right? So we made the decision to take the thing around the corner. I had my friend Ian, who's a long line captain. We're in commercial boats. I had him with me. My Samoan wife, my ex-wife now, but who I was married to at the time, she wouldn't let me go without her on the boat. So I said, fine, jump on the boat. Then her father jumped on the boat. So we get out there and we're doing okay. And it starts getting pretty nautical, you know, not nautical, but just big swells. We're having to keep an eye on it, you know, want to take one to the wrong way. And, you know, we're in a 43 Cabo. So anyways, we get around the corner. There's this reef pass that we could get in around kind of where the airport is. And it's a huge lagoon. We can go in and anchor up and kind of put the pick down and wait it out, right? So we're coming around and there's a bit of reef there that's just, you don't know that it would break, and it's not marked because it's never that big. And we come around the corner and all of a sudden, you know, I surf, so I know the feeling. I start to feel like, oh shoot. And it's like a big wave spot, right? I mean, it is starting to break behind us. Now, it wasn't breaking like top to bottom, right? Or we would have died, but it was starting to fizzle, and it was steep enough that we were now catching this thing. And so, you know, I was young at the time, and, you know, I'm scared. Like, we're catching this thing, and this thing it's giant. I mean, it's the biggest wave I've ever surfed, and we're in a 43-foot boat. And like I said, it wasn't top to bottom breaking, but it was enough that, you know, a big boat like that, you're catching it. And if you stuff the bow, I mean, see you later. And we're getting dumped out in the water there. No one's coming to save us. You know, hurricane on the horizon. There was a long line boat around the corner that we would try and radio, I guess, if we had the, you know, if we had time. But anyways, so we catch this thing. I pushed the bow up. I hit the tabs, and it kind of pushed the bow up a little. But it also kind of screwed us because when we came down off the wave ended up kind of breaking, and it hit the back of the boat with so much force. We didn't stuff the bow, luckily. I was able to kind of just like get us through this. And it hit the back so hard, it pushed water up through the exhaust into the engine, through the turbo, everything, in salt water, into the engine. Luckily, it only did it on one engine, the starboard engine. So now we're sitting like a lame duck there, like, and there's another one starting to crest. And I throw the radio to Ian. I said, Ian, start radioing that commercial long line boat. Put in a distress. We're not in a good, you know, this could be bad. Just let them know. So he's radioing. As it is, this thing's feathering up, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I go to motor up to get moving to try and get away from this next one, and my starboard engine explodes. It had salt, and it goes boof, black smoke, just sounded like a bomb went off. So now I got one engine. Long story short, we get through it. I come in on one engine, navigate all the little coral heads and stuff somehow. We get in, we anchor it up, ride the hurricane out, just me and Ian on the boat for about 3 days inside this lagoon, getting our ass kicked. Luckily, the generator ran good. We had the one engine the one night that it got really bad, I was keeping that thing kind of in and out of gear, so, you know, I could keep it not too much tension because we were getting smoked. Survived it, all good. Engine blew up, insurance claim put in. They're gonna put a new engine in the boat. Take the boat to American Samoa. They ship over a new engine, a full new engine in a container ship to American Samoa with mechanics. They take the one out piece by piece. They put a new one in. It was pretty incredible. Anyways, when it was all said and done, I have a new engine, starboard side engine, everything's set, ready to go, run out. We do our sea trials, everything's good. Take it back to Samoa, good to go. And then the insurance company says we need to get a survey now done on it so we can renew, so we can reset up your insurance. So the only place in Samoa to pull a boat out is this old school slipway around the corner. So I'm saying, okay, well, we got to go to the corner, right? It's like 20 miles. So I'm like, let's fish. So my buddy was working for me at my surf resort. Sal, a friend of mine who I grew up with back on the East Coast, and really good surfer. He's now really, really into fishing, but at the time he was like kind of getting into fishing. He liked it, but more surfing probably. And anyhow, I was like, let's take the boat, come fish with me. We'll come around the corner. I had my Samoan deckhand who I'd just been training. He'd only wired a couple fish. One of the ones he previously, smaller ones, but so Pele's on the boat. Sal, coming around the corner, we start fishing. I'm hungover. We're both hungover. This is back when I used to drink a lot and party and stuff, and we'd partied the night before. So we're making Bloody Marys up in the bridge. We're having a Bloody Mary. We're talking story, and I see these like bombs going off in the distance, like poof, poof, like explosions of water. Over there, a lot of times in Samoa, the yellowfins, when they're feeding, you'll get like froth, and you'll get like big explosions. You'll get fish eating. You'll see it, right? And these are yellowfin explosions, like big yellowfins, 150s and stuff like that. But then every once in a while, I'm seeing bigger ones, So I'm like, man, there's something going on there. So we go over to the yellowfin school, and now Sal's like, I want to catch an ahi. He didn't care about marlin, right? He's like, I want to catch an ahi. Well, here was the spread I had, if I can fully remember. I had a Bart lunch teaser. I had, that was on my right short. Left short was a Joe Yee 505. Right short was a blue breakfast. Left long was a Bahama Lures Apollo, I believe. It was a long time ago. Right long was a ballyhoo hooker, or ballyhoo chugger combo. Stinger was a ballyhoo islander combo. Kind of mixed it up a little bit when I was fishing there. And then, so we come into the school, and this freaking animal just piles on that lunch teaser. And just, I have pancake reels above me. And, my left teaser was a Braziliano, Bart Braziliano. Eats the lunch. And I just see a kind of a shadow and a black bite, and just a boof, and just a pancake reel just goes, and I stop it. I start pulling. I'm like, yeah, there's one in there, right? All's quiet, don't see him, and then just head over shoulders bite on the Bart breakfast lure. Off to the races, start pulling everything in, turning, going after this fish. Starts coming up, jumping, and I'm like, 850, I'm thinking. Now, we had just, like I said, a month prior, we'd just broken the all-tackle record for Samoa. So I was thinking, I don't think it's a grander. It's like an 850, 8-ish or something. So I don't want to kill it, right? We'll get over, we'll get some photos. So we never pull a gaff out. Anyways, we fight this thing for a while. Turns into a longer fight than we should have. I think we ended up, by the time we got it to leader, Sal did a great job. And at that point, I had never really fought a fish of that size. And I wasn't, me sunsetting and doing really, really heavy drag over like 30, 40 pounds was like, I hadn't really done that a lot on fish, but that was when I kind of started to learn that you can trust your tackle, and you really can put that drag on, and you really kind of have to at times on those bigger fish. So we eventually, about an hour or so in, we start putting some heat on this fish, like just locking it up kind of, because I'm like, it's an 8 something. If we pull a hook, we pull a hook, whatever. Let's just catch this thing and get on. I got to get to the slipway. So long story short, this story is really dragging out. I'm sorry, guys. We get to leader, and Pele's going over to take his first couple of wraps. And now this thing is pretty cashed, right? He's kind of come up brown, not dead, but cashed. It's not going to do a hard run on the leader or anything like that. And immediately when I saw it, I go, oh gosh, that's bigger. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, I think we should take this thing. Now I got no gaffs ready because I was going to tag it. I have a tag stick sitting in the freaking chair. So I run down and just grab the flyers would take me a minute to put together. This is why now I always have flyers hanging on my tower legs. So, back then I didn't. They were like down in the engine room. I had to put them together. So I just grabbed my straight gaff and I freaking just straight gaffed this thing in the head as it comes up. Straight gaffed in the head. Pele grabs the gaff. For some reason, we had a rope. I think it was maybe for tunas to drag them, like a put through their thing and drag them type of deal. It was like a rope, smaller rope with a loop on it that you could kind of just like noose through the gill plate or something. And I'm like, shoot, like I'm holding it and the fish is like kind of moving, and I'm like, the gaff's like bending on the covering board. I'm like, oh man. And I'm like looking at the hook and it's in the hard part, bony part of the bill. Like here, it's like barely in. It's not to the thing. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Sal, we got to get the gaffs ready or whatever. And he looks at me, he looks at the rope, but he jumps in the freaking water. He jumps in the water, wraps it around, tail ropes it, runs up, throws me the tail rope. And we were fine anyways at that point. And then I ran down and just grabbed one of the gaff heads off the flyers and stuck it in its face. And that was it. Then we couldn't get it through the door because the Cabo, the way it was, there's like probably like half of maybe almost a foot where the door entrance begins. So you have to get it up a foot and then back in, and it's squared off. So it's not like my Merit, where my Merit's like a ramp. It goes down in the water. You can pull just about anything in the Merit. So this has to come up and then in. So we're trying to get it up and in. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, man, this fish is bigger than 800. Like, this is really difficult. And unfortunately, there was a bracket that you can attach a swim step to. It's like a metal bracket. So as we're trying to pull this thing in the boat over and over again, that thing is just ripping this fish's face apart. That's why you'll see in the photo, there's like a bunch of rips on that face. That's from that swim step bracket. Anyways, end up being like, man, we can't get this thing in. We tried everything. I even hooked the rope through it and went up to the bow, to the electric anchor windlass, and hooked it into that and was trying to pull it through with that. And we were popping the breaker on it. It wasn't working. So we just tied it to the back of the boat real tight, long ways. And I just started trolling back to the harbor, made some phone calls, called in the port, was like, yeah, we want to weigh this thing. It's definitely a new record. I don't know if it's a grander, but it's a big one. I wasn't really thinking it was a grander. I was thinking like 900 max, Still a great fish, would have been my biggest one I'd caught. So anyways, bring it in. The boys come over. At that time, I was the IGFA representative for Samoan Islands. So I had a scale master that was calibrated. So we hung it up on that one first, and as they were pulling it up off the boat, I would just watch the numbers start to rise, and before it was even pulled all the way off the boat, it already hit 900, and that's when I started getting really freaking like, oh my god, and then it pulled loose and was hanging, went up to 1,000. As soon as it hit 1,000, we just lost it. I'd been looking for a fish like that for a long time. Everyone told me they didn't exist there, that they only had small fish there. It was just like, for me, it was like an achievement of knowing that you can believe in something and follow that, and no matter what people tell you, if you just continually strive for that dream and manifest it and think about it and put your time in and go through the hard yards, and every once in a while you get that break, and so for me it was a huge confidence thing in my sport fishing, and it pretty much made me for who I was, and opened the door for my continued growth in this industry and what I started to do, and realize that I'm capable of that. It was a big turning point in my life, that one fish. But so we hang it up, and actually on my official IGFA weight was 1037. But then to make it a national record, we had to weigh it on the Samoa SIGFA, Samoa International Game Fish Association scale, which wasn't able to handle that much weight. So they had a flat scale on the ground that they measured commercial totes in, like the commercial fishing totes in. And so they put the tote on and they measured the tote, tared it, and then they put my fish on top of the tote and weighed it. And on that scale, it went 1025. And that was the final thing we went with to make it a record. And that was my grander, 1025. Pretty phenomenal day. I will never forget. And I ended up getting it tattooed on me. There it is. There's the 1025. And there's my grander. My friend, and the reason I have all these tattoos, I had a really good friend in Samoa who is a tattoo artist. He was a really good tattoo artist, and we were good buddies. We used to drink and hang out together and always cruise. And so he would always bring his tattoo kit around, and all of a sudden, you know, a couple beers in, hey, let me do this. Let me try this. Let me do that. So I ended up with a lot of tattoos. But he came down to the boat, I think the next day, plugged in his tattoo machine inside the Cabo there, and he gave me this one. And then my buddy Sal's got a grander on his back, and my friend Pele's got a grander too. So the three of us all have similar tattoos from that fish. So pretty cool story. Sorry it was long-winded. We may have to do a 2-part best of the best fishing stories, because this is already probably getting up to that 30-minute mark. So we probably will do a 2-part. So this should be part 1.